This is the Dzogchen Sunday Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. For multiple decades, I spent about 8 hours a day, almost every day, studying, practicing, mastering, and reverse engineering the teachings and techniques of each school of meditation so that you would not have to. It is Qui-Gon Jinn early Tuesday morning. Come, let us meditate like a Jedi. After reviewing the 7 Enlightenment Factors. Now, I need to do a quick edit. Please bear with me. Today is Tuesday. And this is the 14th. And we're going to review the seven Enlightenment Factors. Okay. Let's go over here one more time. All right, thank you for your patience. Let's see. Guest invite, guest invite, guest invite. All right, so let's turn our attention to the 7 Enlightenment Factors. We'll begin with mindfulness, which is the first Enlightenment Factor. Every time we inhale, we have evolved to watch mind's antics of perception. You know, seeing, hearing, feeling, tasting, smelling, and the like, including the full spectrum of human emotions, intentions, cognitions, recollections, and imaginings. All of them. The second Enlightenment Factor is investigation. So I'm not thrilled with the way this was translated. Investigation infers an enthusiastic search for the truth. Whether that truth is external or internal, physical or mental, pleasurable or painful, interesting or boring, convenient or arduous, glorious or grotesque. That commitment to the truth impels us to investigate it vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly. We're going to jump ahead to the fourth Enlightenment Factor, which is joyful love. The more we practice mindfulness and meditation in harmony with our autonomic nervous system, the more we automatically stimulate our anterior cingulate gyrus, which functions as the hub of our mirror neurons, the seat of empathy, the root of love and compassion, the key to cooperation. So, quick, when I go back here, when I first learned this, I was distressed because as someone who suffers from multiple disabilities, I was hoping that enlightenment would make me joyful. And when I learned that joy was a prerequisite to enlightenment, I was quite distressed until eventually I learned that joy is an involuntary byproduct of the correct practice of mindfulness and meditation. In fact, the joyful love therefore becomes a litmus test. So if we're practicing active focus and active analysis, and it's making us the opposite of joyful. It's making us the opposite of loving. It's triggering our anxiety and it's triggering our aggression. Then the dialectic material approach would help us say, would help us to bring to mind Bugs Bunny, that time he turned to Daffy Duck and said, "Hey, Doc, I think we took a wrong turn at Albuquerque." Let's continue. So here's the thing. Sturgeon's Law reminds us that 90% of everything sucks, but not in the fun, tingly way. So, which means that that suckiness doesn't just refer to things and phenomena, it refers to people. It refers to meditation teachers. So if about 90% are teaching in the tradition of patriarchy, they're teaching in the tradition that induces people to be rigid, fearful, superstitious, controlling, elitist, cryptic, competitive, and cruel. That's dreadful. That's very sad. That's very tragic. What separates the men from the boys and the women from the girls is the ability to take stock and say, after practicing gung-ho, I seem to be going in the opposite direction. Do they have the courage to notice that and seek out a remedy? The third enlightenment factor is energy. Once again, same thing. I was hoping that enlightenment would give me energy, and then I learned that energy is required to become enlightened. I was very distressed until I learned that the correct practice of mindfulness and meditation that is in harmony with our autonomic nervous system causes our choices, utterances, and deeds to flow, not from contrived calculation nor wild scatteredness, but instead from love's deeply centered spontaneity. That's the source of energy. That's the source of zeal. That's the source of enthusiasm. Yes, practicing mindfulness meditation in harmony with our autonomic nervous system will fill us with love, will fill us with kindness of intention, kindness of communication, kindness of conduct, even kindness of commerce, pulling us away from capitalism's competition and inevitable cruelty towards communism's compassion and cooperation, which are our birthrights. We have the neural structures to make us automatically compassionate and cooperative. The problem is our central nervous system has been hijacked by capitalism. The sixth enlightenment factor is coalescence. How does that work? As we inhale, whether we know it or not, we have already evolved to automatically access the middle bit of our spinal cord, which functions as the core of our sympathetic nervous system. And has evolved to help us to notice all mind's antics of perception, emotion, intention, cognition, recollection, and imagination. All of them. From the external to the internal, from the physical to the mental, from the pleasurable to the painful, from the interesting to the boring, from the convenient to the arduous, from the glorious to the grotesque. So there is a physiological basis. And here's the funny thing. As air coalesces in our lungs. Awareness coalesces in our mind. We jump back to the fifth enlightenment factor, which is tranquility. As we relax into our exhalation, we are wired to automatically access both the tippy top and the very bottom of that same spinal cord. These two regions, working as a team, function as the core of our parasympathetic nervous system, which have evolved to rest to such a degree that which we watched during our previous inhalation could fleetingly feel less stressful, less permanent, less defining, that would be no self, as well as non-graspable. Now, I had the very good fortune in fourth grade to be taught that a simile is only as effective as it is relatable. Therefore, we have to ask the question, what? What is a real-world example of a non-graspable, vast, empty void? Well, how about the illusion of the infinite azure sky on a bright and beautiful cloudless morn, which although could look tantalizing to the eye, could feel non-graspable to the hand. And so we see that both no self and emptiness are just metaphors to describe the latent process, or the effortless and automatic process latent within each exhalation. Finally, we conclude with the seventh enlightenment factor, which is equanimity. Superficially, it works like this. As we rest in our exhalation, whatever beauty or ugliness we saw during our previous inhalation could feel as if it was melting into the simplicity of just sights. Similarly, as we relax into our exhalation, whatever harmony or discord we heard during our previous inhalation could feel as if it was melting into the simplicity of just sounds. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever pleasure or pain we felt during our previous inhalation could feel as if it was melting into just feelings. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever deliciousness or disgustingness we tasted during our previous inhalation could feel as if it was melting into the simplicity of just flavor. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever fragrance or foulness we might have smelled during our previous inhalation could feel as if it was melting into the simplicity of just sense. So we're not lying to ourselves about what we feel. We're not picking up a piece of dog dew and believing it's chocolate. We are being vulnerable to the full spectrum of perceptions. But the very act of naturally watching and resting in harmony with our breathing causes our focus to jump back from hyperspecificity to a gentle generality that helps us to cope in a far less neurotic manner. This is not a cognitive process. This is a visceral, automatic process. But perhaps something that's more effective and less clunky is the idea of remedial equanimity. Being raised like most of us were in patriarchy's late-stage capitalism that triggers our controlling and rigid tendencies. Our tendency is to want to fix things, to sincerely believe that our happiness is dependent on everything being just so, and moving heaven and earth to manipulate everything in our life, externally and internally, to make it just so. Remedial equanimity tells us that the remedy to everything in our lives, the external, the internal, the physical, the mental, the pleasurable, the painful, the interesting, the boring, the convenient, the arduous, the glorious, and the grotesque, is the same. The ultimate remedy is to simply sit and breathe and watch and rest. Do this at least once every 12 hours or so, and you will be astonished with the degree to which you are able to cope with what Shakespeare described as the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune. We shift gears now and prepare to practice Hatha Yoga's union of awareness and letting go. As a preliminary practice, what we want to do is gently invite our real or imagined subtle energy to coalesce at the crown of our head. The easiest way to do that is to use the tip of our left index finger, hopefully on your mirror image. I might not be. In fact, no, I'm the opposite. Anyway, to take the tip of your left index finger and use it to support the lower knuckle of your right index finger, palms up in our lap. Let us not make the mistake of actively focusing on our nostril or our breath or both, for active focus triggers our amygdala, the seat of anxiety and aggression. Instead, let us learn the lesson from a good piano student who is so enthralled with sheet music and keyboard that they are incapable of actively focusing on the sound of the metronome, this bad boy right here, and instead merely hold it in passive peripheral awareness. Let us do the same thing with our breath and our nostrils. Therefore, as we inhale, let us passively notice our nostrils. As we silently and mentally recite the verb watch. And as we exhale, and as we passively notice air exiting our nostrils, let us silently and mentally recite the verb rest. So even though it's most sound to rest our hands in our lap, I'm going to lift mine up just so I can illustrate things. Let's count the next 12 inhalations. So I'm going to twist my hands until you can clearly see my right hand. During each inhalation, when I silently and mentally recite the verb watch, I'm going to advance my right thumb across each set of creases. Let's do this together. So collecting 12 inhalations takes approximately 1 minute. There's probably a good chance you'd like to meditate for more than just 1 minute. If you'd like to meditate for an additional 12 minutes, you can turn your attention to your left hand and touch the tip of your left thumb, the lowest set of creases in your left little finger. This is no longer counting repetitions or inhalations. This is counting sets of 12 inhalations each. So let's count another set, and then another 12 inhalations. Having completed another collection of 12 inhalations, we return our attention to our left thumb and advance it to the next set of creases. So now that you get the basic idea, I'm going to rest these hands palms up in my lap. The moment you have a specific question about the philosophies or techniques that support meditation, do not hesitate to type your question in great detail in the chat window. For I tend to check for questions approximately once every 13 minutes or so. The spontaneous wandering of mind is not a flaw, it is a feature. It is useful. The greatest meditation teachers have insisted that there are 4 bases of mindfulness: the circumstantial, the physical, the interpersonal, and the mental. And that we are wired to hate circumstantial peril, physical pain, interpersonal scorn, and mental shame. And the cool thing is that by simply sitting and breathing and watching and resting, these 4 aversions transform automatically. These 4 personal neurotic aversions transform into universal compassion. Similarly, the Buddha taught in his discourse on the 4 failings of the world, or the failings of the world, that we are wired to personally and neurotically desire circumstantial safety, physical pleasure, interpersonal praise, and personal fame. And by simply sitting and breathing and watching and resting, this personal neurotic desires transform into universal love. Just because that's how we're wired. Because sitting and breathing and watching and resting is us taking a relaxing break from the exhausting habit of actively competing against our own autonomic nervous system, and instead cooperating with it vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly. So there is no need for prayers. There is no need for rituals. There is no need for vision boards or journals. Simply by being vulnerable to the perceptions, emotions, intentions, thoughts, memories, and imaginings that pop up and disappear like a whack-a-mole at a Chuck E. Cheese as we meditate. Universal well-being is accomplished. Now you might say, that sounds like feeling good about doing nothing. Well, here's the funny thing. The more we sit and breathe and watch and rest, the more our choices and utterances and deeds begin to flow, not from contrived calculations, not from wild scatterness, but instead from love's deeply centered spontaneity. This is known by many things. Some call it right effort. Some people call it effortless effort. Some people call it doing without doing. Some people call it wu wei. Some people call it going with the flow. Some people call it being in the zone. Some people call it expedient means. I don't care if you call it Dorothy. Basically, we have evolved to flow with love's deeply centered spontaneity. That's how we wind up taking action at the best time, in the best way. And this isn't pie in the sky. The Buddha taught in the penultimate passage of his Satipatthana Sutta that one could master this path in as little as 7 days. There are a lot of grumpy people who would say sitting and breathing and watching and resting sounds too easy. But the fact of the matter is, by teaching that the path can be mastered in as little as 7 days, the Buddha inferred that it was supposed to be easy. By inferring that, by explaining that the third enlightenment factor is joy, or is the fourth enlightenment factor is joy, Buddha was inferring that this is supposed to make us peaceful and loving. This is supposed to be easy. And if it isn't, then in the words of Bugs Bunny, we've taken a wrong turn at Albuquerque. Having sat for about 3/4 of an hour, we might find it refreshing to practice spiritual squat thrusts after reviewing the meaning of bodhicitta and refuge. In our compassion, may we long to free all beings from the toxic tyranny of dread, desire, and illusion, metaphorically known as the three mental poisons. In our pragmatism, may our liberation of all others be fueled by our mastery of the three wish-fulfilling jewels, of following the Buddha's example, applying his instructions, and cooperating with his students. All that which I just recited is summarized with the following 8 syllables. May we free all through the three jewels. This is not a prayer, this is an intention. So I'm going to knock out 3 repetitions of this, which I find to be terribly refreshing. And if you wish to join me, you are welcome. I'm going to take a moment to swing the laptop around. And now I'm going to do likewise with my smartphone for my friends on the Clock app. Okay, here we go. May we free all through the three jewels. May we free all through the three jewels. May we free all through the three jewels. You have taken your first step into a much larger world. If you feel that I have earned it, you could give this live stream a thumbs up. You could even help support this channel. For Meditate Like a Jedi is made possible thanks to the generosity of viewers just like you. In approximately 11 hours, I would very much like to return to lead today's dusk practice of Meditate Like a Jedi. And if you are as geeky as me, may the Force be with you always.